Out of 10, what would I give Tenet?
Yeah.
Okay. I only watched it once, and I was high, and I was in that stage.
Are you sure you were high? And it wasn't just the
I
movie?
really can't tell, honestly. I was in that stage where I get very critical of stuff. Like, I know it's weird, and I'm not sure if this happens to other people. Like, sometimes I'll get high and I'll be like, oh, like, this thing is so cool, and I'll enjoy everything about something I watch. But other times,
You're just
I
a
just
dick.
get super critical. I'm like, I could fucking tell they're acting and all this other stuff. And I mean, this movie, you could just tell that regardless. I feel, the dialogue was set up just for the other people to react to it, and everybody knew. Multiple times, they specifically tell us not to question the logic of the universe, that they're just exposition dumping at
just
us.
Fucking let it happen. All right.
You don't think about it, you feel it. What the fuck? What do you mean? I feel it. I've never been introverted before. Haven't we all? What? Huh? What? Okay. And what was the other thing about it that really stuck out to me? Oh, that it was Christopher Nolan wanting to do a James Bond film, and it was very much like, you have to get this piece of art. But in order to get that piece of art, you're going to have to go through this step, and that step, and it's going to look really good on camera. It's like, all right, now you got to get this bullet. But in order to find out where that bullet came from, you got to get to this impossible time.
Well, that's the thing about Nolan. Aside from, like, Dunkirk, which even, like, he did in its own unique way, like, his films can't ever be very straightforward. It's just like, yeah, he wanted to do James Bond, but it had to be, like, with, like, reversing time and, like, all this weird shit. Just like, Inception, even though I do love that film, he wanted to do, like, a heist film, but it had to be a dream heist film, like.
Well, the difference is he pulled that off.
Yeah.
that's the difference in my opinion.
I think that film just had, I think overall a stronger cast. I think it had, a stronger narrative.
Characters, for sure.
Yeah, and this film, I think, when you text me, like, he's so pretentious. And Nolan totally is very pretentious. I think he loves films. Like, he loves filmmaking so much, right? Like, he's the guy that's like, you have to see it in theaters, you got to see it in IMAX. And there's something to be appreciated about that, right? Because he really loves the art. And you don't have a lot of filmmakers that are like that, right? And he's constantly pushing his own vision instead of just kind of selling out and doing whatever, people want to make money. Even like his Batman films are very unique, right? But I think it gets to a point sometimes where, like, he should have known when they wrote this film that it wouldn't translate well. I just feel like it would have been a cool, like, comic book maybe, but it just wasn't. It wasn't a good movie. And, like, the first half of the film, you have no idea what's happening. My girlfriend walked out after an hour and a half. She was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't even care. And so I was like, I guess I'll finish the shit on my own. And then, like, I did love the last 45 minutes. I think the ending's really good. I think Robert Pattinson is actually pretty good in it, even though he's not in it probably enough. But, like, it's just a weird movie that doesn't really engage you for a while.
Yeah, I will definitely watch it another time, just because, like, Nolan makes movies that need to be watched multiple times. Like, that's just kind of his thing. And, you catch more stuff every time you do and whatever. So I'll definitely watch it again. But out of 10, like, oh, man, this movie, like...
All right, out of 5.
Probably a 2. I'd give it a 2 out of 5. 2 out of 5, 4 out of 10. How about that?
Ooh, brutal. I would have given it a 6 out of 10 and a 2.5 out of 5, I think.
All right, I think that's
because
fair.
on a filmmaking level, like, everything looks really cool. I just think the plot and the acting isn't up to par. But I definitely really love the ending. Like, the whole way the ending sets everything kind of up that happened before it is really cool. I just wish that you understood things a little sooner, because you're like, what the fuck is happening the entire movie until that last 45 minutes or so. But they said they might even do a sequel, which would be interesting.
Would it be called Race Car? Because it's a palindrome?
Maybe. But a sequel would probably work better, because now that they've established what he does, it could probably work. You know what I mean? Like, if you know
Yeah,
what you're
you'll be
going
looking
into,
for
and,
stuff,
yeah,
you know,
like
it'll be-
what they're gonna do in the film. Like, I think it could probably work really. Like, it could be like they could do movies where it's just like various adventures through time, where he's
Yeah,
like,
it'll
you
be
know,
like I Spy, but like as a movie experience.
here you
Like,
go.
oh, like they're having this conversation. Oh, that window is cracked next to them. How did that window crack? You know, I'm gonna keep an eye out for that later on in the movie. Like, you could have fun with it. I would definitely appreciate a sequel more than I appreciated this film.
Agreed.
Especially because I have an idea of what the protagonist is now, or sorry,
Yeah.
of who protagonist is. I don't know how I should say it exactly.
Right.
But yeah, so you know, it's definitely not a bad film. It just wasn't up my alley.
My favorite line, I think, was Robert Pattinson's like, I think he says something like, "This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship," and I thought that was great. That was funny.
Well, it says like this is just the end, like the ending for me.
Yeah, but just the beginning
yeah.
for you. Yeah,
Yeah, they have that.
it's
So,
interesting.
It was good. It was all right. It was all right. I've also been getting into the Mortal Kombat stuff pretty deep ever since the movie came out, and I
Nice.
didn't really appreciate that movie either. So, but I watched the whole Legacy series on HBO Max. That thing was lit.
Yeah, it was
Awesome.
great. It was really good.
They did some really cool stuff, and you know, actually stayed pretty true to the canon and did their own thing. And
That was back when like all these like YouTube web series were like doing like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. We even got that like Power Rangers short film. Like there was a lot of YouTube stuff
right,
coming
yeah.
out that was trying to like revive these old series since they hadn't been done justice really like in live action films and stuff. So it was
we
cool.
should do something like that.
There you go.
Like revive Beverly Hills Ninja, so we can have a fat martial artist. And I can
No, we need to do something that's never been like, or like it was an adaptation to live action. We need to do like a
Doug.
video game. We got to do like
We gotta
Frogger.
do Doug, the animated series. And,
There you go.
You know, and it's like it's this
Doug.
gritty thing where like Roger Klotz is like constantly beating on them, and actually, no, I was about to go to a Yu-Gi-Oh storyline
boy.
for some
Oh, boy.
reason. Anyway,
I've been going into Resident Evil Village, which has been awesome. Very.
Lady Dimitrescu, how thick is she? Tell me.
She's pretty intimidating, honestly. I know like there's all the jokes about like, you know, like yes mommy please, but she fucking scares the shit out of me. She's very tyrant like or Mr. X like Resident Evil 2, and she just
Okay.
wanders around looking for you, and it's fucking scary because she's gigantic. But there's a mod somebody put out for the computer where you can get a fly swatter and you can spank her, and it's fucking hilarious.
Do her cheeks jiggle though?
No, they haven't gotten that far yet, but hopefully
Damn
they'll
it.
get there.
What is
They'll
this
get
all
there.
for?
I know.
What is Bill Gates molesting children with Jeffrey Epstein for? If you can't get this game on the Xbox and see Lady Dimitrescu's cheeks jiggle because she's thicker than a bowl of oatmeal, this is ridiculous.
I know, but
I do have to finish the last game though. I didn't know it was a sequel, like a direct continuation with the same character.
oh, it's
So I gotta
literally
finish that.
yeah. You're still playing Ethan Winters. I guess he's the new main character, unfortunately, because he's bland as fucking anything. He's like white people food. I can say that because my parents cooked white people food my whole life, and it was horrible.
sorry.
She's just like he's just so bland, and there's like all these amazing Resident Evil characters. Some of them are really over the top, but they're just so much more fun than him. And to not throw, you know what I mean? And like they have like little moments where you haven't beaten 7, but like you'll like meet like a character for like a second, and you're like, oh, why aren't they in it more? You know? And it's also Resident Evil 4. It's totally Resident Evil 4 continued. You're in like a village, like a Romanian village where everyone has American accents.
I was gonna say, what ethnic village are we destroying in this game?
It's totally Romania, but everyone has an American
Jeez.
accent. Like, what is this fucking outsider doing over here? And I'm like, what is happening? Why is this old Romanian guy got a New York accent? But
My grandma got hit by a car and put a curse on the guy's face. He said, dinner. The guy was in his street. Oh, hey.
Bada bing. But and like it's so Resident Evil 4 down to like literally there's like a moment where you're like you have to fight until a certain bell rings and all the enemies disappear, just like the beginning of Resident Evil 4. You can shoot like diamonds off like the ceiling and the wall. There's hidden like gems around. You can combine them to sell them. There's a merchant, and he, even if you like hang out like by him long enough, he goes, "What are you buying?" That's what an old friend of mine used to say.
Oh
So
no,
like,
he says that's what a friend of mine used to say.
yeah, they lean
that's
into it
rough.
fucking hard.
That's a bit much.
It was actually really funny though. It was done really well because he's kind of a very joke character. So.
All right, if you say so, Ty, but tread lightly. You're on thin ice here. Okay.
All right. Anyway, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. I don't know why there's vampires and werewolves yet, but fuck it. It's not Resident Evil anymore. It's just some horror game with some Resident Evil characters.
Are there dragons and werewolves yet? Because that was an awesome book.
There is kind of a dragon, so.
Oh god, I'm not ready for that. Oh, last plug I want to put in since we're on bullshit games we're into and just what we can fucking find some sort of happiness in this world. I've also decided to download the most recent Mortal Kombat game, Mortal Kombat 11, and it is like surprisingly the most feminist game that I've played in a very long time. All of the like next generation of Earthrealm protectors are like the daughters of the original cast of characters, and it's all this stuff about like Raiden being held accountable and not being a perfect dude, and he's kind of toxic and shit, and it's pretty nuts. And there's time travel too. Not to go back to the whole Tenet thing, but I always love me some time travel when it's done well, and they do fun things with it in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, it's
11,
the implications,
What I'm going to imply is that we got to get on with the episode, and we have to figure out how many reviews we've had this week. Ty, you are always great at lending your insight, your sixth sense, if you will.
Right.
To tell us how many reviews you think we have this week.
Let me focus my energies, open my third eye, and I'm going to say -1 + 1.
Wow. Was that your exact guess last week or no?
I think last week it was 2 - 1. Or maybe it was this one. Oh boy, who knows?
Point is, you are.
I'm actually
correct.
in last week. Maybe I'm time traveling.
Oh yes, we already did a you time traveling bit. That's how much I love time traveling, is that it's come up twice in the podcast at this point. You're inverted, Ty. You're just. And here's my co-host Ty.
What if you got stuck inverted and you couldn't figure out how to go back? These are the questions I have.
You mean how to go forward?
Yeah, I guess go forward. Yeah.
Oh, that would fucking suck. But you're right, Ty. We have 0 new reviews this week, which also fucking sucks. But if you want to have your review read at the top of the podcast, all you have to do is go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. As I've said before, many people have taken to critiquing us and negging us with their reviews. But we have low self-esteem, so it will work 100%.
And we'll read it, even if you say we suck. Trust me, we'll read it.
Oh, we 100% will. We might even spend 20 minutes just fighting you on your opinions. But with that, just know that you can listen to us anywhere, not just on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube sometimes. You can find us on social media, on Twitter at PolitiPopPod. I just want to get this out of the way. Instagram at PolitiPopPodcast. And you can always email us at politipoppodcast@gmail.com. You can find our show notes and sources at politipoppodcast.wordpress.com. In case you're wondering where we're coming up with our stuff, we always put our show notes and sources at that link. And I think that just about covers it. Ty, are you ready to bring in that sweet, sweet theme song?
Oh, I'm ready for it.
Welcome back to the Politipop Podcast, the podcast where we read between the lines of our favorite pop culture media and discuss the social and political themes within. This is our second Batmonth episode, and I am your co-host, Mike Booch, a.k.a. the Soy Boy Pseudo-Intellectual, a.k.a., let's just do it again, ACAB, all cops are Batman. And in my co-host seat, as always, is my man Ty.
Hello, fellow Bat fans. Hello.
And for those of you who aren't Bat fans, welcome to this too. We are continuing our Batmonth coverage, whereas Batman Day is one day in this month that I'm not even going to name off the top of the show because I'm so casual I don't know it, but consider myself a super fan at the same time. But we've decided to make every week a Batman-centric episode. And last week, we continued our Sean Gordon Murphy praise by reviewing White Knight, and we are going to finish his series by reviewing Curse of the White Knight and also reviewing Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins.
Oh my God, you're gonna hate me.
Why am I gonna hate? What did you delete? What did you do?
This is hilarious. They actually moved Batman Day this year.
Wait, is it not in May? Is it in September?
It's in September now, yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. I'm pretty sure I knew it was in September because I always get the Batman specific stuff in September.
It definitely used to be in May.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Whatever, we're just doing a Batman month. We're just doing a fucking Batman month because the podcast won't be here in May. How about that?
Yeah, how about that, all right? Man, I guess
I'm quitting in August, so I wanted to do Batman month.
That is
I
true.
fucking trolled everybody, including you.
You put in your 4 months notice, and you are on your way out.
Sorry, that's hilarious to me.
This is pretty fucking ridiculous.
Well, I'm sure the 7 people that listen don't know when Batman Day is anyway. And that's how we're gonna get all our reviews right now. We're gonna have like 5 reviews. I know what Batman Day is. Fuck you, Ty.
Yes.
All right.
You know what? We should just frequently dispense false information in hopes that people review us and just reply and call us out. And they're like, hey,
this could totally be. It could be our thing. This is our thing now.
Oh, good. We'll really piss off Batman fans and be like, of course, Batman Begins when Christopher Nolan welcomed a new Alfred, played by Michael Gough, for the first time. And true Batman fans would be like, it was Michael Caine. Michael Gough played the other Alfred in the first 4 movies. We'll just keep going calling him Michael Gough the whole time.
So annually, it's always been May 1st, just so you know.
Okay, so at least there's a precedent there. There's a reason we have done what we've done. What have I done to quote Anakin
last
Skywalker?
year was May 1st. It was supposed to be May 1st this year. I have no idea where they pushed it to September.
I mean, maybe one is Batman Day and the other is like the anniversary of Batman, and maybe they just were like, you know what, we don't have the resources to keep pulling off these Batman events. We gotta just consolidate it to one day.
DC's also been celebrating. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. DC celebrates on September 19th, but also May 1st. I don't know. There's a lot of Batman time, so whatever.
So Politipop's Batmonth is going to be May from this point to the end of 2021.
We've established something. That's right. This is always our Batmonth.
Yeah, so if you haven't listened to last week's episode regarding Batman White Knight, just know that there's going to be a few points from that are going to be spoiled as we discuss the broad strokes of Curse of the White Knight, which is the sequel. Ty, did you happen to have a plot for Curse of the White Knight?
Oh, do I have a plot?
This guy with the plots. I've never seen anyone who knows plots as well as this Ty guy.
I'm going to tell you, the plot of Curse of the White Knight is not nearly as good as the plot of White Knight. So I was like, oh, this will work for both when I read it last week. But
yeah, it turns out there's a bit more to it than I remembered, because all I said was Harley Quinn does more stuff and how we treat our veterans.
Batman, Curse of the White Knight. The Joker recruits Azrael to help him expose a shocking secret from the Wayne family's legacy and run Gotham City into the ground. As Batman rushes to protect the city and his loved ones from danger, the mystery of his ancestry unravels, and Batman begins to question everything he thought he knew about himself and his place in Gotham.
Of course, in the last book, Napier exposed this group of people called the Elites. These are people who are profiting off of the poor of Gotham and Batman's war on crime, which really is just a war on poor people. We see that in this story, Bruce is a little bit more aware of that at this point. He's trying to be a little bit more connected, but he is urged, basically blackmailed, by this woman named Ruth, who kind of brokers all the shady dealings for the quote unquote the elites, or probably the allegory for the 1% is what they are. So she basically tells Bruce Wayne that, like, listen, I know who you are, and you're gonna have to give up being Batman if you expose the elites. Like, we're gonna tell everybody who you are, or you can keep letting us do what we do, not expose the elites, and not push through the Napier initiative, and you get to keep being Batman as long as you continue a war on low-level crime. and we'll continue doing our thing. So, right now, Bruce is put in a really tough spot because for the first time ever, he has to play politics and he can't punch his way out of this situation. And I liked that take on it, this take of like, all right, if you want to truly do the right thing, you have to give up everything you hold dear to you. And is Bruce willing to do that?
Yeah, I think in general they put Bruce in some really interesting spots throughout this comic, right? He A, has to do that. B, he has to kind of come to terms with his family and what his family really means, and like what is the Wayne family, represent, and he kind of finds out that he's not really a Wayne, right? That name was stolen from the true Wayne family, and he's kind of an imposter in a regard. But they've kind of built up their namesake over the years. So he needs to kind of earn, I guess, what being a Wayne means now. And I think he ultimately has to actually reveal his entire identity to Gotham, right? He lets everyone know who he is in order to win their trust, because he knows that, hiding behind the mask is no longer getting the job done. And, he has to appeal to people's, senses and the good in their heart to kind of let him do the right thing and help him, stop Azrael from destroying the city and taking any more lives. And he does that. And I thought that was a pretty shocking move.
Yeah, if I were to continue my comparison last week when I said that Batman is representative of law enforcement, here we see what we wish law enforcement would do, which is pretty much just hold themselves accountable. Throughout White Knight, Batman was fighting back against Napier and the GTO and the GCPD and even his own children, because he wanted to do things his way. But in this story, he's finally embraced the fact that his way isn't the right way. He's even seeing it from women like Ruth, who are saying you can continue your war on low-level crime, which shows that it just doesn't make a difference, that Batman's doing nothing but indulging his own sense of vengeance, but he's really not holding the real criminals accountable, and those criminals are his peers, the fellow elites of Gotham City. The Wayne fortune is built on blood, and there's kind of a convoluted plot there. We're not going to go into it specifically, but yeah, it turns out that the Wayne fortune and the name Wayne was actually stolen by Bruce's ancestors. I see kind of a comparison to the slavery argument here, because we constantly hear like, listen, nobody alive today owned slaves. Nobody alive today was a slave. So let's let it go. It doesn't matter. It doesn't count. History doesn't matter, basically. But this is another thing that Bruce has to acknowledge here, is that his fortune has allowed him to wage war on the poor of Gotham City.
Right.
And it was a stolen fortune. Like, he is the original criminal, and he is continuing to perpetuate such a fucked up history and a cycle and finally it gets to the point that, like you said, not only does he give up his identity, but he also makes things right by giving up his fortune to the nonprofits of Gotham making sure that it offsets basic taxpayers for years, and is able to give everybody a head start. Like, that is what a true hero really is. Him realizing all of the victims of Gotham aren't just people getting their purses snatched, at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. We're going to go into Batman Begins, and I think they kind of touch on some of these themes as well, though I think they kind of go in the opposite direction. But, the idea that all the good that he could do with that Wayne fortune and helping the city could go a lot further than, like you said, just beating up, muggers. Yeah,
and at the end of the story, Bruce finally does turn himself in. There's a lot of action, a lot of great stuff, a lot of really great character moments, and I'm kind of glad that we're not going into those. That way, people who are listening to this can actually read it and really appreciate the story. Because once again, just Murphy's aesthetic is awesome. His take on Azrael, or Azbat as he likes to call him, when he takes on the Batman armor, is just metal, literally and figuratively.
It's Dark Knight's metal.
It's Dark Knight's metal. It's awesome. So definitely read it just to get all the rich details, to quote Jonah Hill from 22 Jump Street. But yeah, it ends with Bruce in prison and finally being held accountable for his crimes as Batman. But I think
of his own volition too, right? Like he purposely turns himself in, which I think is is big, because the truth is they couldn't get him, if he didn't turn himself in. But he makes that choice, and they definitely deal with some really great concepts in this comic. Azrael is a war vet, and he's got some demons, and there's also a lot of obviously religious imagery, and
he's also got some cancer.
Yeah, he's got the cancer too, so that's not cool.
But yeah, that's kind of another take. Murphy loves to put like like veterans and like military experts and like gun-toting, badasses in all of his comics, and he gives Azrael a whole team here. But yeah, there is that whole idea of like he is enabled by the elites to take down Batman. And in doing so, taking down Bruce Wayne. But once he doesn't do exactly what they want him to do, they take away his treatment, they take away his resources. So he's basically just on a ticking time bomb. He's not on a ticking time bomb, but
he is.
So his cancer, it's a time bomb. His cancer's gonna fucking kill him, is what I'm trying to say. And, he has to choose his mission over taking orders. And, right there you kind of have the whole, like, you're only as good to the system as the last thing you did for them. And as soon as you don't, they'll let you down and leave you out to die. So, we see some of that in Azrael's story as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so just take note that real heroes are billionaires that redistribute their wealth and turn themselves in to pay for their crimes.
Well, I mean, I feel like Bruce Wayne's a more likable character by the end of this series, right? Like he definitely has come to terms with a lot of his own inadequacies and his mistakes. It brings him closer together.
Checks his privilege.
Yeah, like he becomes closer with his family, right? He finally really starts to embrace Barbara and Dick and kind of accept them as like being his family, because there's like this whole undertone of like, he lost Jason, and in this series Dick is actually the second Robin, and I feel like there's always like a lot of animosity.
Does that make your blood boil real quick?
I mean, it pissed me off, but it worked well in this regard, because I feel like it kind of explained why he wasn't as close with Dick, because I think he was always afraid of losing him the way he lost Jason. So like it kind of explained a lot of their relationship. But by the end, I think he's come to terms with things and kind of accepted Dick and Barbara, and brought him closer together with them.
Yeah, he has a lot of growth, and just last thing for me is my favorite part of that growth is that he realizes the power isn't supposed to be within him as one person to change the system. The power is with the people. So when he does finally admit to being Batman and admits to the mistakes that he's made, and shows that growth and shows that humility and shows the ability to change that we all should have as people and as adults, in our ideologies and everything. I really can't stress it enough. I'm Rocky Fouring it right now. If I could change, and you could change, and Batman could change, everybody could change. But he asks the people's permission for him to be Batman one last time and bring in Azrael. And, he says, like, clear the streets, basically, which is interesting because it's the opposite of what the people really should do in real life, which is take to the streets.
Right.
He says, let me handle this, clear the streets. And they all do it for him because Gotham does trust him. And I think they trust his honesty first and foremost. If they'll forgive Jack Napier for being the Joker, of course they'll forgive Bruce Wayne for being Batman,
Everybody loves the Waynes there, right? They just fucking love the Waynes. Like, man.
Criminals, these Waynes.
Criminals, these goddamn Waynes. We didn't talk about Harley either.
We really didn't. I know I said that was my last thing, but it's not my last thing. I'm sorry. Also, just realizing that Gotham was built on the blood of the poor. The valley was flooded, and there were a lot of people who were left behind in order to make Gotham, and that to me is just very, very reminiscent of the United States. That it is built on the blood and bones of namely people of color, indigenous people, enslaved individuals, immigrants.
Right.
And once again, he just has to acknowledge that and move forward. He can't really atone for the sins of the past, but he can help change the system to help the people in the future. And that's something that we should all be acknowledging.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What did you have for Harley?
I was just gonna say, Harley continues to be a pretty strong character in this. She's not, a damsel in distress. She's a mother now, and she's willing to defend her kids and help Batman and kind of try to save Napier, from the Joker. She still believes he's in there and helps pull him back, from time to time. And I just think it's a really good characterization of Harley, not making her again like this weak, needing to be rescued constantly kind of character. She's definitely very strong and intelligent, and she's a great motivator. She really helps Bruce actually kind of keep steady on the path. She calls him on his
shit a lot.
Yeah, there's almost like a weird, I don't know, were you getting romantic vibes towards the end a little bit? Because I was.
Okay, I think if we had seen this in live action or something, we definitely would have gotten some romantic vibes.
I think so too, yeah.
John Hamm and whatever, young blonde chick playing it. Yeah, they could definitely pull that off. I mean, I understand the idea of just having a platonic friend that you're very close to and a confidant with, but I can just as easily, hell, I see a romantic relationship in every guy on guy thing I see. So I definitely could see the romantic idea behind. It's possible that Napier and Bruce could be Eskimo brothers. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. That's our last thought.
Guys, while we talk about how progressive the depiction of Harley Quinn is, know that anyone could have fucked her. Really, we're super feminists on this fucking podcast. Jesus Christ, I'm a hack.
Man.
But after I do finish her follow-up series, which is I mentioned it last time, it's a solo series from the White Knight universe. I will definitely check in and see what they do with her then. While they do show her as being very capable, and she's the one who teaches Napier how to fight in the first one. She's the one who actually orchestrated the him finding out about the medication that would end up making him sane, and kind of put the pawns in place for that to happen. She's the one who holds everybody accountable, both Napier and Batman. So she. She is a strong character. However, I don't think this story I don't think it passes the Bechdel test though. I'm thinking back to some of this stuff and I was like, yeah, she only talks to guys or about guys. But I think
she talked to Barbara?
She might have, but if she did, it was probably about a guy. I know that Barbara, I think Montoya and Barbara talk and it's like, oh, my father would have this. Your father would have that. And she's like, my father? Something
Remember the face of your father, Harley.
Remember the face of your father.
And you too,
folks.
Barbara.
And now on from Curse of the White Knight to the series that is known as the Dark Knight Trilogy. We are starting it off with Batman Begins from 2005, and I just want to put it out there right now that if you look to the sky, not only will you see a signal, which is kind of bat-shaped, but you will also see... Well, you'll also hear the spoiler warning. That's right, folks. Spoiler warning is in full effect. So if for some reason you haven't seen Batman Begins yet, it's currently on HBO Max. I think it might be on Netflix.
2005's Batman Begins. If you somehow missed it,
Batman Begins.
Go back, watch it.
Anyway, whatever, folks. Listen, we are ready to start reviewing Batman Begins as part of our Batmonth special.
That's right. We love Batman here at the Flip Pop Podcast. We just love Batman all year round, and we wanted to celebrate this month because May just feels like a Batman month to me. All
right, Ty, what's the plot to Batman Begins? I've been wondering.
Batman begins after training with his mentor. Batman begins his fight to free crime-ridden Gotham City from corruption. Very vague, but I think it's pretty accurate.
Wait, that was the fucking plot?
That's the plot. That's the official plot on IMDb.
I blinked and I missed it, and I wasn't even looking at anything.
Yeah, they were like, listen, we don't want... Christopher Nolan does not want spoilers in his plots, all right?
They're like, don't tell anyone shit about Batman, all right? They gotta find it out for themselves. You mean Batman, one of the world's biggest icons ever that everybody knows, and he permeates all areas of the zeitgeist.
He's like, I don't want anyone to know that he's Batman until they see the film. And he's like, Batman Begins? Really, guys? Fuck. It was called Begins.
Just put in the synopsis that a guy returns to rid the city of crime, I guess. I don't know.
Do we have to give a plot synopsis? I really want this to shock people. Batman Begins. Yeah, it's a solid intro, though, I think, for Batman. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of Bat fans have already seen the 1989 Batman or had read the comics, and most people know Bruce Wayne's origin story. It's kind of like Spider-Man by this point, right? But they do a really good job kind of building up not just the murder of the Waynes, but I think Bruce like forming who he becomes, how he becomes Batman, and I think the way they delved into that so much, I didn't appreciate it the first time I saw it. Nor the second or third time I saw it, I think, because I was in high school and then college, and I was just like, I want more fucking supervillains. I want Joker, I want Bane, and don't worry, we get them. We fucking get them. But I think there's something to be said for like this whole idea of just regular crime, right, in Gotham City, and how it's destroying the people. And how, all these people are bought and paid for. It just feels very real, and I think in a way that the other movies will never be able to really pull off. And even though he dresses like a bat towards the end of the film, it still feels like a reflection of our own world.
Well, following up on what we were talking about with the White Knight series, right? Like we keep coming back to this idea of the real crime in Gotham is the city being bled dry by the elite, by organized crime. And in this case, it was based off of Year One, and that was a little more apt for the time. I'm not sure it translates too well to now, but you still get the idea. About the mobster trope and everything, and they were very faithful to the comics while also approaching this earnestly and as realistic as one could. They're answering questions nobody even fucking asked in this series. I was getting ready to graduate high school and started reading more Batman. Like this movie really spoke to me, and I know it sounds like so bro-ish to say that. Like, yeah, the Nolan movie spoke to me, but I've mentioned in previous podcasts how I just wasn't really like raised to have like empathy for people or understand how a normal person is supposed to act.
Yeah, you had a very Dexter Morgan kind of upbringing.
Very Dexter. Tonight's the night. It's going to happen again and again. Deb curses a lot. Anyway, but yeah. So I've been on a path on a journey to learn how to be a real boy, and there was the biggest thing that sticks out to me about this film is the last line in the film where Gordon says to Batman, he says, "I never thanked you," and Batman goes, "And you'll never have to."
Yeah, that's so good.
And right there, that to me was like, oh, that's what a fucking hero is. And I don't know why it took 18 years to figure it out, but it's you do the right thing regardless of who's thanking you or who's talking shit about you. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do and you want to help people.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a great line, and it's something that I think we should all kind of look to, right? Like, there's one thing, like, when we do things to get a thank you or to get appreciation, then it's not authentic, right? Because you're expecting something in return. And when you kind of just do something to do it because it's the right thing, or you just feel like you should, I think it has a different feeling to it. And I think that's what Bruce is saying here. It's not, or Batman's saying it because he's really not Bruce Wayne. He's saying you'll never have to thank me, because that's not why he's doing it. He's doing it because he wants to make a difference in the city. And for all of his mistakes and faults, I do think his heart's in the right place, and he is a good man. And whether we agree or not that this is the best way to handle saving Gotham, I think that he is trying to, and that's really important. And there's a lot of lines in this film that actually stood out to me a lot more this time, and I think were very, very memorable. Rachel's line, right? It's not who you are underneath, but it's what you do that defines you. And, that's a line that Bruce uses back later, and I think that's also another one. We can all say, hey, I'm a good person, right? Look at the police, right? Cops are like, I'm a good cop. I'm a good person. I'm not a bad apple. But if they just stand there while a cop kneels on someone's neck and lets them die, then are they really, what's the defining moment? Is it them, saying they're a good person underneath, or actually doing something to stop that from happening? So I think, that's a really important line too, because it is our actions that kind of define us and let people know who we really are. Are you going to stand there and let bad things happen, or are you going to make a stand?
Yeah, I mean, I also see a lot from this movie that's kind of like a playbook on resisting. You know what I mean? Like, Bruce specifically says, people need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy. And when we think about, let's talk about holding police accountable. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. We see these horrible snuff films, but these are also the videos that are getting people to take to the streets and getting people to, as Batman says, rattle the cages. And he knows it's not the low-level criminals that need to have their cages rattled. He's talking about the judges who are bought and paid for. He's talking about the mob bosses. He's talking about Falcone. He's talking about the dirty cops that Gordon's working with, Flass in this case. It's great to see that sort of nuance, because sometimes we see it in Batman stories and sometimes we don't. But,
Right.
I alluded to it last week, and I'm going to mention it now. When he's talking to Ducard, not really Ducard, at the beginning of the movie, he says, have you lost a lot of your assumptions about the difference between right and wrong? And Bruce says, the first time I stole so that I wouldn't have to starve, yes. So, we see that he's going back to a Gotham where a lot of people are hurting, but he's aware of the difference between stealing to survive and dispensing a psychotropic hallucinogen throughout the Narrows and, using a microwave emitter to drive everyone insane. He can make that distinction. It's a very thin line.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that towards the end it gets very comic booky, but a lot of the things he's fighting, like you said, are corruption, are, regular crime bosses. This is stuff that you could see in the real world. You could see it in New York City, right? Especially in the 70s, where crime was really high. I'm sure that kind of stuff, happened, right? It happens today where politicians are bought and paid for, and, there is so much corruption. And there's a line that Falcone says to Bruce when he confronts him after the murder of Joe Chill, and Falcone says,
Come down here with your anger.
Yeah, not that one, but yes.
Oh, that one.
He tells him to look around the room, right? He's like, there's judges, there's cops, there's, everyone that's important in Gotham City, they're represented there in his little club. And, he says that kind of power can't be bought with money, but with fear. And
because he says that he would have no hesitations about blowing Bruce away right there.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the motivator. Bruce needs to become Batman, right? Because he realizes he has the money, he has some power, but he doesn't have people's fear, right? No one's going to fear Bruce Wayne, but they can fear the Batman. And he disappears for 7 years to train in the mystical ninja arts with Ra's al Ghul. And then he comes back as Batman. Maybe Falcone didn't mean that exactly, but, he
was like, don't come down here with your anger, trying to prove something to yourself. Go train with Ra's al Ghul, okay? Go learn how fear works for you, all right?
Become a fucking ninja, and then we'll talk. That's how I got here.
You gotta feel the fear before a crime, and you gotta feel the success after you pull off the fucking crime. All right.
That's right. But no, one of the things is that Bruce feels like he has nothing to lose because he's already lost his parents, and that was such a traumatizing moment for him that he's been just taken over with a wave of anger and self-pity and just not. He's a shell of his former self, and he feels like he can do whatever it takes because he's not afraid to die. I don't think Bruce is worried about himself, but once Falcone's like, what about your little friend, right? Talking about Rachel or your butler, Alfred. There are still people that he cares about in this world, and they can be taken from. They can be hurt, and so he needs to wear a mask in order to protect them, right? He has to create this new persona, and that's why people can't know that Bruce Wayne is competent. That's why when he comes back 7 years later, that Bruce Wayne is this drunken idiot who has models with him. He buys the hotel, and he's kind of a little bit of a jerk at times, because he's just this idiot playboy billionaire, and people can't realize he's a competent ninja.
He is the most competent ninja I've ever seen.
Apparently, he fucking defeats the entire League of Shadows. He's like, he trains for 7 years, and he's better than all of them.
At the graduation ceremony, he just wrecks.
He was valedictorian of the League of Shadows. And
Bruce, make your speech. I won't kill unless anyone is still in this house in 3 minutes. If you're still here, you're dead. And Watanabe gets fucking squished.
That is a good point, though, because, early on, there's never, an instant, he will never kill kind of thing. Because he's going to shoot Joe Chill, right? He's got a gun. He's ready to kill Joe Chill. And then Falcone assassinates him first, so he doesn't have to. But, there's so many points throughout this movie and throughout all 3 films where he, chooses not to save someone and lets them die, and that's his way of being like, I didn't fucking kill him. They died on their own.
What? Wasn't me.
Like
Wasn't
the
me.
train
What?
crashed, the house burned down. It felt like it's not my fault.
I could only save the kid, or I could save Harvey. What did you want me to fucking do?
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want me to do?
You know, what do you want me to do? Exactly. I couldn't save him.
So there's also a character study that's not necessarily related to social justice for me, but I've empathized with Batman on a very personal level since, you know, kind of taking him as like my favorite hero. And part of Batman's journey is a journey of, you know, kind of confronting your own demons, and it's a story about confronting your fears and realizing your traumas, and also it is a story about growth. And I will also say that it is a story about mental health. We'll see that in this movie, Batman Begins, it starts with Bruce falling down into this hole and being traumatized, and it's his father who has to be the one to take him up to help him. But ultimately, this is something that Bruce never really got over. And you know, I'll finish that thread back in the Dark Knight Rises.
Why do we fall, Bruce?
So that we can learn to pick ourselves up. I just like the idea of someone kind of confronting stuff that's difficult to confront and being like, all right, I'm going to make this a part of me instead of shying away from it. And, you know, once again, that gives him an insight into the criminal element too, because, I mean, it takes him a bit to realize that not all criminals are superstitious and cowardly, but he learns firsthand, and that's kind of one of the great things about Batman just as a character, is that he is obviously the best martial artist in the world, arguably, but he's also counting on the fact that these low-level thugs are going to be nervous and they're going to miss shooting at him. They're going to aim for his cape and not aim for him. Like, you know, just him having that mental edge on people is what I really love about Batman as a character, and using that mental edge to always get the upper hand when he may not physically be able to.
Right.
I wanted to talk about Wayne Enterprises real quick. Because, you know, we see that Mr. Earl at the beginning when Bruce's parents die, he says, we'll have somebody looking over the empire for you. And we see that just from the very beginning, that capitalism is something that thrives when one person is at the top and many people are at the bottom, because that is literally what an empire is. It's not a democracy. And, you know, and we see that Wayne Enterprises continues to be on the downfall after, you know, like the one good dude who fucking worked there dies. I mean, there are a few people trying to maintain the legacy as Mr. Earl takes the company public, but you know, they're outvoted. They're not the majority shareholders, and you know, once again, it is capitalism that kind of takes Wayne Enterprises to this dark place where it's doing weapons manufacturing instead of, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna. Did they explicitly state when they started doing that? Because a lot of those projects were scrapped, right? They're not even using them, but they're creating, you know, armor for soldiers, or they're creating tanks, pretty much, you know, all kinds of weaponry. Was that something that was not started when Thomas Wayne was there?
Yeah, when Thomas Wayne was there. I mean, I would like to say it wasn't, but also he does tell Bruce that he leaves the running of the company to much more interested men.
Right.
So I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that was happening under his nose, which, you know, once again shows that even if you have a good person who is, you know, just drenched in privilege, they will still not make great decisions just based out of ignorance alone, because they're just not aware. Like, he's like, oh, well, we put a train here so everybody can be united. You know, we're going to unite the city. But also, who knows when the weapons thing started at Wayne Enterprises. You know, luckily they started soon enough that Bruce was able to take advantage of all the scrapped projects in R&D.
Yeah, it was pretty amusing when he's trying to tell Lucius Fox all the reasons that he's using it for, and Fox is eventually like, "Listen, you don't want to tell me what it's for? That's fine. I don't have to lie about it, but don't think me an idiot, you know." And he's like, "All right, fair enough." You know, he's spelunking, so he needs this bulletproof armor. You know, it gets pretty ridiculous, and it's clear why.
To a lot of gunfire in these caves, Mr. Wayne.
Yeah, you know, it's like, all right, yeah, he had to trust him pretty early on if he was going to make this work. So,
what else about this?
I was gonna just mention, like, I don't always agree though with the message of this film. So, like, one of the things they try to kind of hammer home is that, you know, Thomas and Martha Wayne were really good people, right? They were these great people who loved the city, and they were always trying to find ways to help the citizens and make it a better place. But because they did that, they put themselves in harm's way, and they were killed by one of the very people they were trying to help. like Joe Chill killed them, even though arguably they were trying to say they were doing more for him than anyone else in the city would. And this kind of leads to, a lot of different people taking different paths along the way, such as, Bruce becoming Batman, Ra's al Ghul deciding the city can't be saved and having to destroy it. And I feel like that's not really accurate, and maybe, I'm sure Thomas was helping the city. He made this train, to help everybody out, but
with his own bare hands, Thomas Wayne.
Maybe if they took those billions of dollars and they created affordable housing or rent-controlled housing or, a community land trust, or provided, additional jobs or some sort of socialized medicine for the city, or maybe a universal basic income for everyone. Like, there's all these different things that I think the Waynes could have done for just Gotham City. I'm not even talking about for the United States, right? Just for Gotham City, that I think they could have done without bankrupting themselves. Because clearly they have a lot of money and they're very successful and the people of Gotham love them. And I think had they done that, they could have avoided things like, having Joe Chill desperate enough to kill them for money. And, instead of just these very, like, I don't know, these typical, like, look what we're doing, we're putting money back into the city. But I think it's more of not just putting money into the city, but how you're distributing it. And I think that's a really important distinction that they don't make here. And that Bruce could do.
Vanity projects.
Yeah, exactly.
And that kind of was what the train was. And, I just want to piggyback off this idea of you saying, like, they're not necessarily bad people, they just don't know. And, that is the problem. That's what we talked about last week, that you just can't have the wealthy being the people to make decisions. There's no reason why we should vote, a wealthy person into the United States presidential office. It's just ridiculous that we have so many people in Congress who the wealth gap is insane between them and us, and yet they're passing legislation that's going to impact the working class.
Yeah. Exactly.
That is dangerous, and even if the intentions are good, bad things still happen. Even if you have someone saying, like, well, we need to end crime. All right, well, let's do the 1994 crime bill that's tough on criminals. Instead of, like you said, providing resources to communities that have been historically disinvested in, and then being able to, to provide options to people so they don't always turn to crime. Or changing the laws so that not every little fucking thing they do is a crime.
Yeah, I mean, I think healthcare, housing, stable money would go a long way further than, Wayne Tower being the center of the city and being a symbol. He's like, look, the train goes straight to Wayne Tower. It's the heart of the city, so everyone can look up and see the billionaires. I mean, see us. It's just kind of like,
to me, own you.
It just shows like how, it just shows how disconnected they are from reality, that they feel like this is a symbol of hope. And again, I know the Waynes are Gotham's family, right? People love them because they feel like it's their people. And I think it's another one of those situations where people probably go, look, we could be the Waynes someday, right? Like we can make it there. But it doesn't happen. That's not realistic. And the Waynes, again, being good people. Like, I really honestly believe they are good people. Thomas Wayne, he works at a hospital. He doesn't even need to, but he does. And he wants to help people with his hands, right? He's a surgeon who can save lives. And that's always a big part of his character, his lore. And, I do think he wants to help the city, but, had they made some different choices, they could have done that. And I think Bruce could easily fix this, easily make these decisions himself.
Yeah, but he didn't learn about economics. He learned karate.
He's a ninja.
A competent ninja. He's the most competent ninja you've ever seen. But yeah, and I understand what you're trying to say too. Like, I understand they're Gotham's family. I understand they're good people. Like we're actually like we're coming out against Meghan Markle. And
I'm just waiting for people to be like, the Waynes have always been good since the 1930s. They've been
the Waynes didn't deserve what happened to them.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and I know you're not saying that, but like I just want to outline the fact that like it's not that, oh, well, you didn't help the city the right way and so you get killed, but it's, maybe if you were connected to the city in a different way,
Right.
you would have seen the people who needed help, and instead of having 10 Joe Chills on every block, you have 3 Joe Chills on every block, and your probability of being shot in Gotham.
Yeah.
I don't know why he was hanging out at such a fancy opera house. But you probably
that's one of my critiques I was going to bring up next.
Shot in Gotham goes, let's take our son to the opera. Of course you're fucking disconnected, fucking Thomas.
But this film almost has that message that, like, because they tried to help the city, that's why they were killed. Like, I think someone literally says it. I don't know if it's Falcone or Ra's al Ghul. But
Ra's al Ghul says they were gunned down by the very people they were trying to help.
Yeah, and
I
think that's just such a wrong message. I know he's the villain, but in a way, Bruce kind of takes that message to heart by becoming Batman, right? Because he feels like the only way to stop them is to beat the shit out of them as a Bat Ninja.
Yeah, Bruce, competent Bat Ninja. Bruce doesn't, he doesn't question anything else about the League of Shadows teachings, which I find hilarious. Like, he takes everything, and then at the very end where he's like, oh, by the way, you got to drink this Kool-Aid. Like, that's like joining a cult and being like, oh, I like everything but this.
Yeah. They're like, you got to chop this dude's head off. He's like, oh, wait, I didn't know there was killing involved. Like, why do you think you learned how to fight with swords and throwing knives and, like, all these other
poison?
Deadly... Yeah, you fucking idiots. What did you think was going to happen here?
We called this... All right, Bruce, we call this sleepy juice. What you do is you just drip the sleepy juice in the person's tea when they're not looking, and they go right to sleep.
And in the comics, obviously, Batman is trained not just by, like, one person, right? He trains all over the world. He takes all these different skills, and that's how he becomes so effective. But, like, according to this movie, besides, like, getting thrown in prison all over the place, he really just trained with the League, and it's kind of interesting that he's, like, so much better than all of them. I'm like, huh. Interesting.
I can't really back that up.
So let's go back to the opera house real quick, because, like, so they're in this really fancy opera house, right? And Bruce is like, let's get out of here. And his dad's all like, yeah, you got it, bud. And they go out the door, and they're in this fucking, like, dilapidated alleyway that's, like, covered in graffiti and dirt. And, like, there's totally a guy with a gun there. It's so obvious, like, you know what I mean? Like, even Thomas knows right away. He's like, let's go, guys. Let's fucking go. I'm just like,
let's step along, Bruce. Come on, buddy.
Like, who designed this place? I understand, you can't, like, patrol the streets, but, typically I feel like when you leave, like, a place like that, you wouldn't, if you have all these upscale, the rich people of Gotham, there'd be either some sort of security outside, or the police would be patrolling it more.
I will say that I'm surprised they didn't really have security around there.
Yeah.
But to follow up on what you said about, like, one side's an opera house and the other side is this disgusting dilapidated alley. That's a great commentary.
It is a great commentary, yeah.
You talk about how, like, capitalism thrives once again on the few at the top and the many on the bottom living in terrible conditions. And, we were listening to Rev Left Radio and discussing that, when they were discussing that, saying, like, just think about every major city and you'll see, like, the pinnacle of human ingenuity and civilization and all these amazing skyscrapers and lights and ads and all the stores, and it's beautiful and everyone's having a great time, and literally one block over or less you'll see some dude begging for change, living out of a tent if he's lucky. However, in New York, instead, we would have actually had the security there as opposed to Gotham City. We have fucking... I mean, I haven't been through Penn Station in a while, but just, how, like, we're always walking around and there's always cops just with rifles?
Yeah.
Just chilling, like, on every block, like there's going to be a terror attack at any second.
Well, I've heard that crime is up a lot in the city, and I've heard multiple reasons for why. Obviously the pandemic, putting people out of work.
Okay, got it. New York. Yep.
And a lot of people, being... not, moving out of the city, or not, like, going out as much. There's not as many people walking around. So, but I've also heard that a lot of police are not actually patrolling because they're, like, almost on strike because of all the Black Lives Matter protests. That's, unconfirmed. I don't have a source for that, but that's something that I have heard. And I wouldn't be fucking surprised, right? They're like, fuck it. Let people get shot, and they're going to see they need the cops, all right? Fuck Black Lives Matters.
They mentioned on the Daily Zeitgeist about that happening in California, actually, that certain crimes they just won't show up to, or certain calls they just won't show up to. And, unfortunately, in some places it's because cops have left. Some places where they've decided to defund the police, cops have just outright left. From what I understand, defund never meant lower their salaries, but it meant like, okay, they don't need all this money for ordinance this year.
They're not going to get the Batman tech.
Exactly. They're not going to get this year's Batmobile. They have to stick with last year's, the Tumbler.
It's like the Hess trucks, they get them all every year.
For Christmas this year, the cop truck's here. But
we know New York City's not defunded. I mean, that has not happened.
So it's just weird to see so many people who are held up as being heroes who serve and protect turn out to be very petty. Turn out to be people who are like, a vengeful parent who's like, you know what? If you don't appreciate what we do for you, then we're just not going to do it, okay? But I sound just like Bob's wife from Bob's Burgers. All right, but yeah, you got to try and defund us. We don't want it, Bob. But yeah, it's so telling. The mask is off right now, and it's very frightening too. Like you think you'd want people who are more like, okay, well, I'm going to keep doing my job regardless because I believe in serving and protecting people.
Right. If you're really a good person, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, to be like, oh, if you're not going to appreciate us, we're not going to show up. Like, why are you proving everybody right that you're fucking assholes?
Exactly.
Why would you do that?
Exactly.
Now is the time to prove everybody wrong. To be like, listen, like we aren't what you say we are, and we are going to, I don't know, work overtime to help. I don't know. It's not going to happen. Once in a while we'll see that a cop ran into a burning building, or that a cop was stabbed, or that, a cop lost their life. And, that's supposed to offset all of the other stuff. That, a few cops are victims of stuff. So it's supposed to offset the fact that there's so many oppressors on the force. We've literally seen the police union head, and I believe it was New York for the NYPD, talking about how, oh, it's an attack on police. You're trying to defund us. You don't appreciate us. Like, what?
Yeah.
How is this who you are? It just goes to show you never really cared about, quote unquote, being a hero or helping the community or anything like that. It's disgusting. It's petulant. It's childish.
I mean, I guess I just have a couple last thoughts for the movie. So Ra's al Ghul, he's obviously got this plan of murdering all of Gotham by using Scarecrow, Dr. Crane, and obviously he's wrong in doing so, but
he just gives Scarecrow one gun and a shitload of ammo and a list.
Godspeed, man.
Go scare the fuck out of me. He's doing like a Monsters Inc. thing. I got this door.
He's just going to give him a glove full of broken glass. He's like, I killed a wolf with this once. Yeah.
You kill all of Gotham's residents.
And
he goes, if you get caught, you may want to take your own life. And he just gives him like a hammer. And he's here, take this.
But yeah, so like Ra's al Ghul's plan is pretty barbaric. But at the same time, I think that, if he had taken a slightly different path, he was trying to make a difference in the world, I guess in his own weird way, right? Like he does want to save... he wants to stop crime. He wants to stop evil. Like that's, he's trying to kind of reset the balance. Unfortunately, his answer is fucking kill everybody. So it's not a good response. He's like, come on, Bruce, why aren't you into this? And even though it's Bruce's, city, he's like, come on, just fucking kill everybody. So that's
it's like he sprung a
plan.
threesome on Bruce last minute.
Yeah,
like, hey, I have a friend coming over later, and he's like, whoa. He's like, I cannot abide by this. He's like, Bruce, come on, you're my finest pupil. I thought you were cool with this. Becky is only going to be here for another 2 hours.
Like, what's the problem, man? It's like,
come on, be cool, Bruce. Something that's very unfortunate is now that I look back at a lot of these films, I do take the side of the villains.
Yeah.
Because, once again, like Bruce is just the myopic capitalist dude who thinks he's making a difference while he's not really fighting, the real villains. However, it is always great to see, especially in this and the next movie, to see him just fucking destroying police cars and beating the shit out of cops. That's always fun. But Ra's, I get what he's going at. Ra's in the comics, or Raish, depending on what pronunciation you want to go with. If you want to go with the real one, Raish. But Ra's al Ghul is, in the comics, he's more of an eco-terrorist who's trying to maintain balance through extreme means, and he's less like, I'm going to have everyone in Gotham kill themselves, and it's going to be a purge. I think he would realize more the bigger picture. In this, he literally says criminals thrive on the indulgence of society's understanding. And that right there just made my stomach turn a little bit because, it was very conservative to me. Like, they take it too easy on the criminals. They take it too easy on these people. They should do this. We should have the death penalty, stuff like that. Like, that's what Roz represented in this to me. And I'm not a... Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that. But what I was a fan of is him saying that, as one person, you're bound to make less of a difference than if you devote yourself to an ideal, which is what we've preached on the podcast multiple times, that, we really shouldn't put our faith in people. We should put our faith in ideals. And, because that way anybody can be Batman. As long as we have all the resources and to become a competent ninja.
He teaches Bruce the theatricality and tricks and all that, right? Doesn't Bane
theatricality and deception?
Yeah, doesn't Bane criticize that in the third one?
Oh yeah. Well, that's because he says theatricality and deception are powerful agents to the uninitiated.
Okay.
So when he tries to, Bruce has been using those tricks on people in Gotham. They're like, "Oh, Smoke, get the fuck out of here!"
Right,
and then
okay.
and then he punches him in the head. But he throws smoke at Bane, and Bane's like, "Oh. Okay, I'm a more competent ninja," but like that's
everyone's a crooked ninja.
Everyone's a crooked ninja. Everyone's a crooked cop. What do you have for Ms. Rachel Dawes?
So I know there's a lot of criticism of Katie Holmes when this movie first came out. People didn't particularly love her character in this, and I remember not.
I will never critique her just because of being a victim of Tom Cruise. But that being said, how is her acting?
So like when I first saw this film, I thought she was pretty bland, right? Of all Batman's love interests, he's got like Catwoman and he's got what's her name, Vicky Vale, right? Like he's got like all these like some more like I don't know interesting.
He's got Catwoman, he's got Vicky Vale, he's got Silver St. Cloud,
he's got Talia al Ghul, he's got all these kind of more interesting characters, and I felt Rachel was a little bland, But rewatching, I thought I liked her idealism. She's obviously like I guess she's a DA or works at the DA's office, and she's
a lot more realistic and grounded too.
And she's trying to take down crime, and I appreciate that she can't be bought. Right, at one point they're like, "Well, we just buy her," and like, not this one. She really believes in trying to fight crime, and I thought that was
great. And in using the system to do it, and that's a big part where her and Bruce kind of part ways, and I think where Gordon kind of helps them meet in the middle. But
unfortunately, as a character, I did find her still pretty bland, and I really hated her last couple scenes with Bruce because. Like earlier in the movie, when she finds out Bruce was going to shoot Joe Chill, she slaps him and she's trying to like tell him to help her save the city, showing him the crime around there. And then he comes back to Gotham, right? And he's trying to make a difference. And she has that moment at the end, I think I texted you about it, where she walks out to him and she's like, "I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped thinking about us." And she kisses him passionately. And she's like, "But then I realized that you never really came back and that you're wearing a mask and that you're Batman."
If you slow it down, you could see the exact moment where Bruce Wayne's heart shatters into a million pieces.
I'm just like, what the fuck was that? That was really, really messed up. Like, wow. I could not believe that shit.
"I would give myself to you right now and have passionate sex with you if you could promise me that you could give up being Batman."
I'm just like, what the fuck was that, So it was kind of weird. That was definitely a weird turn. So I want to be like, he is here. He's helping the city, damn it. It's what you wanted, isn't it? I know not exactly this way, but... I don't know. It was interesting to me, but I thought it was kind of funny.
And we'll find out next week that, like... It's kind of bullshit that she doesn't want to date a guy who's constantly putting himself in the line of fire.
Oh, yeah, it's totally bullshit. It's like, just admit you're not into him anymore. Just fucking, it's okay. Like, he wasn't even trying to go out with her. She's the one that kissed him. It's so weird.
That's very true.
It's some really weird writing from Nolan.
I'm
his
balling fucking models left and right. Like, it's fine. I could get that out of the way and then be Batman with the rest of my time.
Yeah, like, he obviously cares about her, and he was like, this isn't me. He doesn't want her to think he is just a stupid billionaire, playboy, but at the same time, he wasn't like trying to restart his relationship with her. So they kind of forced that in there, I think, to kind of move the narrative of The Dark Knight a little bit, which, obviously does work in that film, but it was just a little weirdly, it just felt really odd that she just walks up and kisses him. And I think it was kind of almost a disservice to her character, really, to make her do that.
Did they have a romantic thing before he even went away?
No, they never mentioned it. They just said they were childhood friends. And they obviously cared about each other.
Huh.
And I think there was probably some attraction there, but there was never.
There was
mention
more
of it.
attraction between Batman and Harley Quinn in Curse of the White Knight.
Yeah, agreed.
Between Rachel Dawes and Bruce Wayne. I mean,
Yep.
you know how unfortunately they always do the whole like romantic interest and storyline, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, they also did a little bit Zack Snyder Man of Steel logic where she has to find her way onto the narrowest part of the island just as everything's happening at the end. You know, I'm a DA, let me through. I was like, all right, fuck it. I had a few final thought. The inmates pouring chemicals into the water was very reminiscent of inmates making hand sanitizer to me. You know, how you have, you know, just they seem to be using the mentally ill and disenfranchised people to do a lot of their bidding in this movie. I was surprised they made Gary Oldman carry a human body because it looks like he's actually cradling Katie Holmes' body, or at least a stunt double on his way out of that asylum. I was blown away that they made Gary Oldman do that, or maybe they just threw a mustache on a guy. And there's no way buying a hotel works that way. Those were my
I know. I was like, what the fuck was that? He just gives this guy a check, and the guy's like, I don't own this place. I'm the manager.
Yeah, like, he's not the one to even make that call. Like, you don't just...
Can you imagine?
Do that.
He calls the owner up. He's like, I sold the hotel. The guy's like, what? Sorry, Hilton.
It was a great price. I sold the hotel. It's like walking into a car dealership, writing a number on a check, and be like, I'm buying this car. And they're like, okay, there's like a lot of paperwork.
Yeah,
credit checks.
It doesn't work like that. Like,
it's ridiculous. Man. But yeah, so I think that concludes the Batman Begins for us, and
Beautiful.
Also Curse of the White Knight. Next week we will be reviewing The Dark Knight, my favorite movie, if not one of my favorite movies. I literally have a line from it tattooed on my body. But until then, for the Politipop podcast, I have been Mike Booch.
I have been Ty.
And remember, no matter what you're watching, no matter what you're reading, no matter what you're listening to, never stop thinking, never stop learning, and always remember to read between the lines.
And scene.
All right, I'll make that work.